The emergency alerts blared through Research Station Delta 7, their harsh sound breaking the usual quiet of the night shift. Tom Parker looked up from his desk, where star charts and data tablets lay scattered across the surface. The flashing red lights painted the white walls of his small office in an eerie glow. Warning: unknown object approaching. Possible collision course, the station's AI announced in its calm voice. Tom rushed to the observation window, his coffee forgotten on the desk. Against the backdrop of endless stars, he spotted something tumbling through space. It wasn't an asteroid. The object's metallic surface reflected the distant sunlight. As it drew closer, he recognized the familiar shape of an escape pod, but unlike any design he'd seen before. The pod crashed into the outer docking bay with a sound that echoed through the station's metal corridors. Tom grabbed his emergency kit and ran toward the scene, his footsteps echoing in the empty hallways. As the station's night shift researcher, he was the first responder. "Computer, scan the pod for life signs," Tom commanded as he reached the airlock. "Caution: unusual bio readings detected. Match found in database. 99.8% probability of Shadowhunter presence." Tom's heart skipped a beat. Everyone knew about Shadowhunters, the galaxy's most feared predators. Stories told of their incredible strength, natural armor, and ruthless hunting abilities. Some said they could tear through spaceship hulls with their claws alone. The logical choice was clear: call for galactic security and let them handle it. That's what the protocols demanded. But something made Tom hesitate. The pod's condition suggested a desperate escape, and the bio readings showed signs of injury. "Computer, seal this section and maintain quarantine protocols," Tom ordered, making his decision. "But don't send any external alerts yet." The airlock hissed as Tom stepped through. The escape pod's hull was scorched and damaged, telling a story of a violent escape. As he approached, he heard something inside, a sound between a growl and a whimper. Using his override codes, Tom managed to open the pod's hatch. The interior lights flickered, revealing a sight that took his breath away. Curled in the pilot's seat was a creature straight out of humanity's darkest nightmares, and yet somehow beautiful. The Shadowhunter was larger than a human, its body covered in what looked like living shadow metal. Patterns of bioluminescent markings pulsed weakly across its surface, and its crystalline eyes glowed with an inner light. One of its limbs was clearly injured, dark fluid seeping from a deep wound. The creature's head snapped up as it noticed Tom. Instead of attacking, it made that strange sound again. Definitely a whimper of pain this time. Its eyes locked with Tom's, and in that moment, he saw something that changed everything: intelligence, fear, and suffering. "It's okay," Tom said softly, knowing the creature might not understand his words, but hoping it would sense his intention. "I'm not going to hurt you." He slowly opened his medical kit, maintaining eye contact. The Shadowhunter watched every movement but didn't attack. Instead, it slightly shifted its injured limb toward Tom, a gesture that seemed almost like a request for help. "Computer, scan the injury and suggest treatment options," Tom whispered. As the computer began its analysis, Tom noticed something else about the creature. Its size and proportions weren't quite right compared to the Shadowhunter specimens he'd studied in xenobiology texts. This one was smaller, its features softer somehow. "Subject appears to be a juvenile specimen." The computer confirmed his suspicion. Tom's decision solidified. Protocol or not, he couldn't abandon an injured child of any species. "I'm going to help you," he told the Shadowhunter, reaching slowly for his medical supplies. "Let's keep this between us for now." The creature's bioluminescent patterns shifted, creating a gentle swirling pattern that seemed almost grateful. As Tom began treating the wound, he knew his life would never be the same. He had just made first contact with the galaxy's most feared predator, and somehow it felt like the beginning of something extraordinary. What he didn't know yet was just how much this moment would change not only his life, but the understanding between species across the galaxy. 2 weeks had passed since Tom found the injured Shadowhunter. He had converted his private research lab into a secret recovery room, using his senior researcher status to restrict access. The creature, which he now called Storm because of its swirling patterns, was healing quickly. Tom entered the lab with his usual morning delivery of food, mostly raw meat from the station's protein synthesizers. Storm lifted its head as the door opened, the bioluminescent patterns on its body brightening in what Tom had learned was a greeting. "Breakfast time," Tom said, placing the large container on the floor. He had discovered that Storm needed massive amounts of food to heal, which meant creative adjustments to the station's supply logs. As Storm ate, Tom checked the healing wound. The creature stayed perfectly still during the examination, showing remarkable trust. That trust had been hard-won during the first few days, when Storm had growled at every approach. Now, the Shadowhunter even seemed to enjoy Tom's company. A sudden knock at the door made them both freeze. "Tom, it's Bill from Supply. We need to talk about your requisition orders." Tom's heart raced. Just a minute. He quickly activated the lab's privacy screens, hiding Storm from view. "Stay quiet," he whispered to the Shadowhunter, who seemed to understand the urgency. Opening the door just enough to step through, Tom faced Bill in the hallway. The supply officer looked concerned, checking his datapad. "Your meat protein requests have tripled in the past 2 weeks," Bill said. "And you've been using enough power to run all the lab's systems 24/7." The captain's starting to ask questions. "It's for my new research project," Tom replied, trying to sound casual. "I'm studying high-energy consumption patterns in synthetic organisms." Bill didn't look convinced, but nodded slowly. "Just try to keep it reasonable, okay? Resources are limited out here." After Bill left, Tom returned to find Storm attempting something new. The Shadowhunter's crystalline eyes glowed brightly, and suddenly Tom felt a gentle pressure in his mind. An image appeared in his thoughts. Storm's family, a group of larger Shadowhunters, running from attacking ships. "You can communicate through images," Tom gasped. "This is incredible." Storm's patterns swirled faster, excited to be understood. More images followed. A dangerous space journey, separation from the family group, damage to the escape pod, and finally, finding Tom. "So you're not just intelligent. You're telepathic," Tom muttered, taking notes on his pad. "Everything we thought we knew about your species is wrong." The next image Storm shared showed the Shadowhunter family in a peaceful setting, helping other ships navigate dangerous space regions. It was completely different from the violent predator image that galactic records portrayed. Their breakthrough was interrupted by the station's emergency sirens. "Attention all personnel," the captain's voice announced. "A Galactic Council patrol ship will dock in 6 hours for a routine inspection. All sections prepare for review." Tom's blood ran cold. Council ships had advanced scanning technology that could detect Storm's presence. He turned to the Shadowhunter, whose patterns had shifted to show distress. "We need a plan," Tom said, pacing the lab. "They'll search everything." Storm sent him another image. The maintenance tunnels running between the station's outer and inner hulls. They were tight spaces that most humans avoided, perfect for temporary hiding. "That could work," Tom agreed, "but we'll need to move fast and careful." As they prepared for their risky plan, Tom realized how much Storm had come to trust him. Here was supposedly the galaxy's deadliest predator, willingly following his lead and sharing its species' secrets. The next few hours would test that trust to its limits. If they were caught, Tom would face charges of harboring a dangerous creature. But looking at Storm's intelligent eyes and gentle patterns, he knew he couldn't betray that trust. They were in this together now. What started as an act of compassion had become something more, a friendship that defied every warning and regulation in the book. And somehow, Tom knew this was just the beginning of their challenges. The Galactic Council ship's arrival changed everything. Tom watched from his lab window as the massive vessel docked with Station Delta 7, its silver hull gleaming against the stars. Storm was safely hidden in the maintenance tunnels, but Tom's relief didn't last long. All senior staff report to the main conference room immediately. The captain's voice echoed through the station. Tom's heart pounded as he entered the conference room. 5 council enforcement officers stood at the front, their black uniforms decorated with medals. Their leader, Commander Wells, activated a hologram showing a familiar shape, a shadow hunter. 3 weeks ago, we lost track of a juvenile shadow hunter in this sector, Commander Wells announced. Our sensors detected debris from its escape pod near the station's coordinates. The room filled with nervous whispers. Tom kept his face neutral, though his hands trembled under the table. Shadow hunters are Class 1 threats to galactic peace, Wells continued. But this one is different. It's young, untrained, and therefore even more dangerous. Its parent group has destroyed 3 pursuit ships already trying to protect it. Tom's mind raced. Storm had shown him images of peaceful shadow hunters, helping ships, not destroying them. But the images Wells displayed told a different story. Ships torn apart, stations damaged. We'll begin a complete station sweep in 1 hour, Wells declared. Anyone found helping the creature will face severe consequences. As the meeting ended, Tom received an urgent telepathic message from Storm. Images flashed in his mind. Council officers finding the hidden escape pod in the docking bay. They were already searching. Tom rushed to his lab, taking a roundabout path to avoid security. He needed to get to Storm before they did. Through their mental link, he could feel the young shadow hunter's fear growing. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the station. Alert! Unknown energy signature detected in maintenance section C7, the station AI announced. That was where Storm was hiding. The council's sensors were better than Tom had feared. Seal all sections. Commander Wells' voice boomed. All personnel returned to quarters immediately. Tom reached the maintenance access panel just as heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor. He quickly pulled himself into the tunnel, closing the panel behind him. In the dim emergency lighting, he crawled through the narrow space. He found Storm pressed against a corner, its patterns barely glowing to avoid detection. The young shadow hunter sent him an image of its family again, but this time Tom understood more. They weren't attacking ships, they were defending their young. Your family is coming for you, aren't they? Tom whispered. Storm's patterns pulsed once in confirmation. Another image showed multiple shadow hunter ships approaching the station. They were coming to rescue their child, not to attack. Breach in maintenance section C7. The AI's voice echoed through the tunnels. Security teams converging. Tom made a quick decision. We need to get you to the emergency shuttle bay, he told Storm. Your family can pick you up there without endangering the station. The sound of cutting tools came from both ends of the tunnel. They were running out of time. Storm's patterns swirled frantically, showing an alternative route through the station's waste disposal system. It would be dangerous, but they had no choice. Lead the way, Tom said, his voice firm despite his fear. As they moved through the darkness, Tom realized the true weight of his actions. He wasn't just helping an injured creature anymore. He was actively defying the Galactic Council. Yet watching Storm move with such grace and intelligence, he knew he was doing the right thing. The young shadow hunter wasn't the monster everyone feared. It was a child trying to return to its family, and Tom was its only ally in a station full of enemies. The hunt had begun, and the next few hours would determine not just their fate, but possibly the future of human-shadow hunter relations. Tom only hoped they'd live long enough to prove the truth about these misunderstood creatures. The waste disposal tunnels were dark and narrow, filled with the hum of machinery. Tom crawled behind Storm, whose faintly glowing patterns provided their only light. Above them, they could hear the heavy boots of council security teams searching the station. Life signs detected in lower sections echoed a voice through the station speakers. All teams converge on waste management. Storm's patterns flashed in alarm. Through their mental link, Tom saw an image of the emergency shuttle bay. It was still 5 sections away. They needed to move faster. A loud bang shook the tunnel as security teams started cutting through the upper panels. Metal dust rained down on them. "We need another way," Tom whispered. Storm's eyes glowed brightly, sharing a bold plan. The waste disposal system connected to the station's external vents. They could spacewalk around the station's outer hull to reach the shuttle bay. It was extremely dangerous, but they were out of options. Tom checked his pocket. He always carried an emergency space suit tablet, a thin device that could create a protective suit around him in seconds. It was meant for emergencies only, with just 30 minutes of air. They reached an external vent panel. Tom's hands shook as he entered his override codes. Storm sent him calming images, showing that Shadowhunters could survive in space for short periods. Breach detected in Waste Management Section 4. The AI's warning blared. Emergency containment initiating. "Now or never," Tom muttered. He activated his space suit tablet. The protective field spread over his body just as Storm hit the panel with its powerful claws, breaking it open. The vacuum of space pulled them out. Tom activated his suit's magnetic boots, clinging to the station's hull. Storm's natural abilities allowed it to walk on the metal surface as easily as a floor. They began their dangerous journey across the station's outer shell. The darkness of space surrounded them, broken only by distant stars and Storm's glowing patterns. Below them, the curved hull of Station Delta 7 stretched like a metal landscape. Suddenly, searchlights blazed from the Council ship. They'd been spotted. "This is Commander Wells to all units," a voice crackled in Tom's suit radio. "Targets located on outer hull. Prepare capture teams." Storm's patterns swirled frantically. Through their link, Tom saw Council ships approaching the station. And beyond them, something else. Several dark shapes moved among the stars, their own patterns glowing in familiar colors. "Your family," Tom realized. "They're here." But the Council ships were closer. 2 small pursuit vessels detached from the main ship, heading straight for them. Storm moved in front of Tom, its body changing to match the color of the station's hull, a Shadowhunter's natural camouflage ability. The emergency shuttle bay was just ahead. If they could reach it before the pursuit ships, they might have a chance. Tom's suit display showed 15 minutes of air remaining. Laser fire from the pursuit ships lit up the space around them. Storm's natural armor deflected the shots, protecting both of them as they ran. Tom had never seen anything so impressive. The galaxy's deadliest predator using its abilities to defend, not attack. They reached the shuttle bay's external airlock. Tom's fingers flew over the control panel, entering emergency codes. The outer door slowly opened. "Stop right there," Commander Wells' voice boomed. The pursuit ships had caught up, their weapons locked on target. Storm's patterns pulsed with determination. It sent Tom a final image, a thank you, showing their journey from injured creature to trusted friend. Then, before Tom could react, Storm pushed him through the airlock to safety. The young Shadowhunter turned to face the pursuit ships alone, its patterns now blazing like a star, but it wasn't attempting to fight. Instead, those patterns began pulsing in a complex sequence. Through their mental link, Tom felt a surge of triumph from Storm. The pattern was a signal, and the dark shapes in the distance were responding. Storm's family was coming. The real space battle was about to begin, and Tom knew he had to make a choice: stay safe in the airlock, or help his friend show the galaxy the truth about Shadowhunters. Tom made his decision in an instant. He wouldn't abandon Storm now. Overriding the airlock controls, he launched himself back into space just as the adult Shadowhunters arrived. It was a sight he would never forget. 5 massive Shadowhunters, each twice the size of Storm, emerged from the darkness. Their patterns glowed with beautiful, complex designs that lit up the space around them. The Council pursuit ships suddenly looked very small in comparison. "All units, open fire," Commander Wells ordered through the radio. But before the Council ships could attack, something extraordinary happened. The adult shadow hunters didn't charge or attack. Instead, their patterns began to pulse in harmony, creating a display that looked like a dancing aurora in space. The lights spread outward, forming a protective dome around the station. Storm's patterns joined the display, and through their mental link, Tom finally understood. The shadow hunters weren't creating a light show. They were activating an ancient defense system built into this sector of space. Suddenly, holographic images appeared around them, projected by the shadow hunters' combined energy. They showed scenes from thousands of years ago. Shadow hunters guiding ships through dangerous space storms, protecting stations from cosmic threats, and working alongside the first space explorers. "This is impossible." Commander Wells' voice wavered. The ancient guardians. They were real. Tom watched in amazement as more images appeared. The shadow hunters had been peaceful protectors, using their natural abilities to make space travel possible for other species. Their fearsome reputation came later, when they were forced to defend themselves against those who wanted to capture and control them. Two of the adult shadow hunters moved closer to Storm, their patterns matching in a way that clearly showed they were its parents. The young shadow hunter's joy flowed through the mental link so strongly that Tom found himself smiling inside his spacesuit. "Commander Wells," Tom spoke into his radio, "everything we thought we knew about shadow hunters is wrong. They're not mindless predators. They're the original guardians of these space lanes. The ancient guardians from our oldest space legends." The largest shadow hunter, obviously the group's leader, approached Tom. Its patterns shifted to create a direct mental connection, stronger than anything he'd experienced with Storm. In moments, Tom saw the full truth. The shadow hunters had built a vast network of energy pathways through space, making safe travel possible. When their civilization was attacked by those who feared their power, they went into hiding, appearing only to protect their young or defend against threats. "This is Elder Shadow," Storm communicated proudly through their link, "leader of our last hidden colony." The Elder's patterns created images of a hidden space station, far from normal travel routes. There, the last shadow hunters kept their ancient knowledge safe, waiting for the day when they could trust other species again. Commander Wells' ship had gone quiet, its weapons powered down. The evidence was too clear to deny. These creatures, feared throughout the galaxy, were actually its oldest protectors. "The Council has been wrong," Wells finally said. "We need to report this to Central Command." Storm moved close to Tom, its patterns showing both happiness and sadness. Through their link, Tom saw an invitation to visit the hidden colony, to help bridge the gap between humans and shadow hunters. "I accept," Tom said without hesitation. The Elder's patterns brightened in approval. More shadow hunters were appearing from the darkness of space, their combined patterns creating a spectacular light show against the stars. It was a celebration of new beginnings. As Tom watched humans and shadow hunters starting to communicate for the first time in centuries, he felt Storm's gratitude through their link. One act of kindness toward an injured creature had changed the course of galactic history. The truth about the galaxy's most feared predators was finally revealed. They weren't monsters to be hunted, but ancient allies waiting to be rediscovered. And it all began because one human chose to help instead of fear. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was packed. Representatives from 100 worlds filled the circular chamber, their voices hushed as they watched Tom Parker become the first human to address the full council. Storm stood beside him, its patterns glowing softly in the dim light. "Honorable council members," Tom began, his voice steady despite his nerves. "For centuries, we've hunted the shadow hunters based on fear and misunderstanding. Today, I stand before you with proof of our mistake." The council president, an ancient being with silvery skin, leaned forward. "You ask us to ignore thousands of reports of shadow hunter attacks, to forget the destroyed ships and lost lives." Storm's patterns shifted, and through their mental link, Tom received images to share. He touched the display panel in front of him, and holograms filled the chamber. "What you're seeing are the true records," Tom explained. Every reported attack was actually a defense. The Shadowhunters were protecting their young, their hidden knowledge, and sometimes even us from dangers we couldn't see. The holograms showed Shadowhunters redirecting deadly solar flares away from colonies, guiding ships through quantum storms, and shielding stations from cosmic radiation. Suddenly, a harsh voice cut through the chamber. "This is a trick." General Stone of the Council forces stood up. "The creatures are manipulating these images. They're predators, nothing more." Storm remained calm, its pattern steady. Through their link, it told Tom it was time. Tom nodded and pressed another button. The chamber's doors opened. Elder Shadow entered, followed by 6 adult Shadowhunters. Their combined patterns created a light show that transformed the entire hall into a 3-dimensional star map. "This," Tom said, pointing to glowing lines connecting the stars, "is the ancient Gateway Network. The Shadowhunters built it millennia ago, making safe space travel possible for all species." The council members watched in awe as the map showed how the network connected thousands of worlds, hidden energy paths, quantum corridors, and safe routes through dangerous regions, all created and maintained by the Shadowhunters. "We didn't just lose their friendship when we started hunting them," Tom continued. "We lost the guardians of these space lanes. Notice how dangerous space travel has become in the last century. That's because the network is failing without their care." Elder Shadow moved forward, its patterns creating clear images in everyone's mind. The Shadowhunters were offering to restore the network, to return as guardians, if the Council would guarantee their safety and freedom. General Stone wasn't finished. "And what happens when they turn on us? When they use this network against us?" Storm surprised everyone by moving to the center of the chamber. Its patterns began a complex dance, and suddenly each council member could feel what Tom had felt during their first meeting. The young Shadowhunters' fear, pain, and then growing trust and friendship. "They could have conquered us centuries ago," Tom said quietly. "Instead, they chose to hide and protect us from the shadows. They've shown more mercy than we deserved." The council president stood, silver skin shimmering. "We have much to discuss. But first, Tom Parker, you broke numerous laws helping this young Shadowhunter. Do you understand the consequences?" "Yes," Tom replied firmly. "And I'd do it again. Sometimes laws must change when we learn the truth." Storm moved closer to Tom, its patterns showing support. Around the chamber, other council members began to stand. One by one, they raised their hands in the ancient gesture of agreement. The president nodded slowly. "Perhaps it's time for new laws. Time to rebuild what fear destroyed." As cheers filled the chamber, Tom felt Storm's joy through their link. The young Shadowhunters' patterns created one clear image, a future where humans and Shadowhunters work together again, guarding the stars as friends, not enemies. It wouldn't be easy. Centuries of fear wouldn't disappear overnight. But looking at Storm, remembering their journey from that first meeting in his lab, Tom knew anything was possible when you chose trust over fear. The stand was over. The real work was about to begin. 1 year after the historic council meeting, Station Delta 7 had changed beyond recognition. Once a quiet research post, it now served as the first joint human Shadowhunter command center. Tom stood at the main observation window, watching ships move through the newly restored travel lanes, their paths marked by softly glowing energy trails. Storm, no longer the injured juvenile, but now a young adult Shadowhunter, floated outside the station. Its patterns had grown more complex with age, shimmering with confidence as it guided a transport ship through a difficult section of space. Transport safely through the quantum corridor. Storm's mental message reached Tom clearly. Their link had grown stronger over the past year, allowing them to communicate easily even at great distances. The station's command center buzzed with activity. Humans worked alongside Shadowhunters, learning to read their patterns and understand the ancient network they maintained. What once caused fear now inspired wonder. "Ambassador Parker," a young officer called out. The first graduation ceremony is about to begin. Tom smiled at his formal title. After the council's decision, he had been appointed as humanity's official ambassador to the Shadowhunters. But his real joy came from the training program he had helped create. In the station's main hall, 20 human cadets stood ready for their graduation. Each had spent 6 months learning from the Shadowhunters, understanding their ways, and preparing to work alongside them. Elder Shadow led the ceremony, its patterns creating a beautiful light display that told the story of their species' friendship. Remember, Tom addressed the graduates. 1 year ago, humans thought Shadowhunters were monsters. Today, we know them as our greatest teachers and allies. You are the first of a new generation that will help rebuild what fear once destroyed. Storm moved to Tom's side, its patterns matching the ceremonial colors of Elder Shadow. Through their link, they shared memories of their first meeting, the fear, the risk, and the trust that changed everything. The graduates received their badges, each one bearing the new symbol of the Joint Space Guard, a human hand, and a Shadowhunter's pattern intertwined. As they celebrated, news arrived from the Quantum Communications Network. Ambassador, a communications officer called out. The Council reports the 100th colony world has just voted to join the protection program. The Shadowhunter network now covers more than half of known space. Cheers filled the hall. Even some of the older council members who had opposed the partnership now supported it. The results were impossible to ignore. Safer travel routes, better protection from cosmic threats, and a level of space exploration that hadn't been possible for centuries. Storm shared an image through their link, a memory of itself as an injured youngster, frightened and alone in that damaged escape pod. Then it showed Tom what might have happened if he had followed protocol that day, if fear had won over compassion. I just did what any friend would do, Tom replied through their link. Elder Shadow approached them, its patterns showing pride. The ancient Shadowhunter had become a mentor to both of them, teaching Tom about their history and helping Storm grow into its role as a guardian. The next patrol starts in 10 minutes, Storm communicated to Tom. Ready for another adventure. Tom checked his new spacesuit, specially designed for working with Shadowhunters. Always ready, partner. They left the celebration together, heading for the patrol lanes where more ships would need their guidance. As they moved through space, Tom spotted a transport ship carrying another group of human trainees, coming to learn from the Shadowhunters. The galaxy's most feared predators had become its greatest protectors once again, and it all started because one human chose to look past appearances and help an injured child. Storm's patterns brightened as they began their patrol, lighting up the darkness of space. In that light, Tom saw the future they had helped create, one where fear gave way to understanding, and ancient enemies became eternal friends. The story of the human who befriended the galaxy's most lethal predator had become legend. But for Tom and Storm, it was just the beginning.